When this is your thumbnail, you should expect for things to go wrong. Goodness gracious. You know why 7 is the unlucky number, Alan?
Why?
I don't know, but in the future, we never have an episode 7 ever again. We skip it. We go from 6 to 8. So sorry for the technical issues. We use StreamYard. We love StreamYard. Broadcasting to LinkedIn Live, we had a time mix up between time zone conversion, and then LinkedIn timed out our ability to go live. So right now, we are live on LinkedIn, and we're going to buy a little bit of time as we do our review while we give our audience a chance to catch up to the new host. So, Alan, while I work on that in the background, will you do me a favor, please, and take us through the challenges of the business use case that we were looking to solve from last week?
Well, before we get there, I just want to let you know that I finally found my dream job, Jeff.
Oh, what's that?
Having somebody pay me to sleep is now what I have considered my dream job.
Okay, and how'd you pull that off?
I haven't pulled it off, but that's my dream job, being paid to sleep.
Okay, well done.
Paid to sleep.
Well, no, I get it.
Dream job.
No, I get it. Lenny, I'm going to need you to co-host the joke portion while I make sure I'm technically set up here, please.
Hey,
I do have feedback from a couple people watching it who have let me know that they are seeing it live on LinkedIn.
awesome.
Well, I asked my dog the other day, what is 2 minus 2? And he said nothing.
Nailed it. You know. Speaking of that, Lenny, to the guy who created Zero, thanks for nothing.
Sure, I think these are going down the hill very fast these days.
You know, a tennis ball walked into my bar this morning, and I asked him, "Have you been served?"
How you doing,
I'd
Jeff?
say these are good jokes.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, listen. Like on a more serious note, and I apologize. Last issue last week, I was a little distracted. My wife had sent me a text that said our dog had gotten into a bag of Scrabble pieces and eaten a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
Any
gracious.
Any
Yeah.
word?
Huh?
Any word?
Any
No,
word?
no word yet.
No word yet.
Oh,
Yeah, he's at the vet. No word yet. I've been a little distracted.
Oh, I love it. And guess what, guys? Everything seems to be working. It puts in the Integrate Live community with the new link. Come on in. And whew, I hope everybody everywhere. Graham says he can see it. Graham, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And I think we've got the technical. Hey, I'm going to just say all technical issues are behind us. Let's review the project last week. The challenges of connecting stuff from the plant floor to enterprise applications. The challenges, we've got all of these data silos, these islands, and we're trying to get the good stuff up, the value of the tough stuff up through a DMZ without using a bunch of custom scripting, keeping the IT teams happy, right? Protecting the security mandates in place. And then if we are successful in all of that, now all of a sudden we've got uncontextualized data that we have to transform and blend. We need to add an element of time. We need to take raw data contextualized with time to make good KPIs that our teams can act on. And ideally, do so in a way that we can be interactive with those back on the plant floor. Those are the challenges. And we said, hey, we can solve that in 45 minutes live. What could of course we can. So here's where we left off. Kevin has a configuration piece that he needs to show us on the Software Toolbox Omni server product. Lynn has a configuration piece he wants to show us on the Data Hub, which is our DMZ OPC to MQTT layer. Let's review real quick what this architecture actually looks like. And then Lenny is going to go and show us, now that the data is arriving at the DMZ broker, how he can access it via MQTT. and start doing some stuff with it. Meanwhile, John, you're standing by on Blender Cam to be able to show everything working in real time, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, Blender Cam. Sorry.
Yeah, whenever. Okay, cool. Okay. That's if you didn't watch the virtual workshop from last week, you can go back. It's on the integrate-live.com archives. That's where we're starting from. Everything is ready to kick off right now. Okay. So take it away. Kevin, you're first up. Show us the configuration and show us where, if the configuration isn't exactly the way it should be, how you would catch it and how you would diagnose that using the tool.
I think you're muted there.
I saw some snails racing around my property the other day, and one of them thought he'd be faster if he got rid of his shell, and just made him a little sluggish. Speaking of things taking longer,
All right.
I digress. So last time we already confirmed connectivity to our barcode scanner. We confirmed so the scan codes were coming in. So we're gonna skip that part. We need to get our printer working. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a tool in Omni server called the IO monitor. So in IO monitor, I need to select the COM port for my printer, which is COM3. And I'm going to bring up my OPC test client, which is a sample OPC client that installs with Omni server. And I'm going to ask you to scan a barcode, a drink type barcode for me, John.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the print command we just sent out. It's not. Shouldn't have worked.
Well, it did. I got a label.
Okay. All right. Well,
You're magic. You got it fixed.
apparently I am magic. Let's go into the Omni server protocol. And so what should have happened is it shouldn't have worked. What we were seeing last week is that everything before this backslash was being transmitted, but nothing after it was being transmitted. So in Omni server, a backslash is a special character. It's used to denote different number systems, hexadecimal, decimal numbers. So if it gets used literally in a message string, as you can see here, there's a barcode, there's a backslash. If it gets used literally, it's used as an escape sequence, which caused everything after that backslash to not get transmitted, which was causing our barcode labels not to get printed. So in order to actually handle that, you have to use another backslash. You'll see that added. That escapes the backslash's special characters status. Alternate to that, you could replace it with its hexadecimal equivalent. That would work as well. Hexadecimal 5C is a backslash, so I could also enter backslash X 5C, and it would do the same thing. Additionally, last week, I was supposed to enable this triggered button, which means that the only way this command should get sent is after a write to this drink type trigger item. With that disabled, a write to the barcode item would cause this to get transmitted, or a write to the drink type item would cause this to get transmitted. We don't want that to happen. We only want the command to get sent after both of those items have values, in order to get a properly printed label with the right barcode and the right drink type on it. So I've enabled that. You see, we've got a double backslash now instead of just the one. That tells Omni server treat this backslash literally, and transmit a literal ASCII backslash. So I will save that, apply the changes, and go ahead and scan another label, John.
There we go.
And you can see the backslashes in there. Our values for the drink type and our value for the barcode are in there. So that's all working. I've actually done a blog post. You can take a look at this later that talks about special character usage and how to use backslashes to escape special character statuses, because there are other special characters besides a backslash that you'd run into this problem with. So at this point,
and we've got a link for you at the end. You can scan a QR code and get to all this.
So at this point, I'm going to disconnect from that machine so that Wen can take over.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
All right.
I'll start getting some drink material ready here.
So the Omni server OPC server is configured and sending up to Data Hub. Yeah.
Correct. So Data Hub, the local Data Hub in the bar and grill machine should have the values. We're going to log in and just double check all that. And then the goal is to push this data to the DMZ.
Okay.
So if we just go to view data, give it a sec to load, and pull down to, say, our scanner, we can see a scan from 11/19 today, which is just last minute. So that's all working properly. I'll close this. Where we left off with the MQTT client was, let me open the configuration. I had set up a host ID, a port, and I had set up authentication. There was one checkbox I missed. Basically, we need to accept invalid certificates. Because this is a self-signed certificate, it's considered invalid. So we missed one checkbox. I'll just say, if we were rolling this out to a customer production site, just be very careful on what pieces you document. And I was like, oh, this will be easy. Miss that one checkbox, and that'll get you. So now that we have accept invalid certs enabled, we can just turn back on our DMZ, click apply. That connection says it's running. Let's go to the DMZ. And John, do you want to give me a scan of a barcode?
Hey.
And I heard it print, and I see the timestamp updated to 11:21 with 43 seconds. At this point, we have data flowing from our lab to our DMZ computer over MQTT. And what Lenny is going to do is he's going to act as an MQTT client to this Data Hub broker, and he's going to consume the information for flow.
Cool.
I've got a couple drink cups ready.
John's ready to start mixing. Lenny,
You know it. But Lenny's got some stuff to do.
if you'll get your screen share started, I'll add you on.
There we go.
Typos and checkboxes, the bane of programmers, integrators, and live demos alike.
I
You
concur.
know it.
Lenny, let's assume that someone's never seen Flow before. Give a quick layout of what this screen is and who would be using it from a role perspective, if you would.
Perfect. So what you're seeing in front of you is the Flow configuration environment. If you guys remember from episode 4, Flow's got 5 steps. Let's see, what can I put on the spot? Jeff, give me the 5 steps to build a proper analytics hub.
Okay. So first we have to build an information model. That's different
Correct.
than just a asset model, right? Because you're introducing things you want to measure like KPIs and time, right? Because you can't get a KPI without time. Then you're going to connect all those siloed data sources to that model that gets pushed down. So standard model, connecting the sources, transform, taking points or tags from multiple siloed data, making them into a new calculated tag or event or KPI. Visualize, that's how we serve information to people. And bridge, it's how we serve information to systems through if it comes into Flow, it's got to leave Flow. Did I get them?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay.
100% full marks for you. So this is exactly what you see in this little configuration tool here. So on the left-hand side, guess what? Model. All right, so that's the first thing we do. We create a hierarchy of a model type for your KPIs. Now that can mimic your asset structure. You can utilize the ISO 95 as a guideline, enterprise, sites, works areas, work centers, work units, the typical kind of way that we will model it. But in essence, it's now a KPI. Now I've mimicked this. You can see we've got the bar. That's where John is. In the bar, we've got a blending area. And in the blending area, we've got a few things. We're going to do a little bit of KPI monitoring around the vibrations that we get back. We're also going to detect these downtime events based on John's scanning a barcode. And then we've got some production-related things as well. So we're going to see how many drinks John produced, pretty much. And from those produced drinks, we're going to see, maybe let's do a projection to see at the end of the day, what is John's throughput going to be? So how many drinks can John potentially make in a day based on his historical analysis that we're going to apply on the data? Now, we don't have a lot of data. Obviously, the data is literally flowing in right now. So let's see how accurate this projection is going to be for us. But in essence, this is where I build out that model. Second part was to connect, right? So on the right-hand side is where I would connect to all my different data sources. Very quickly, the one that I'm going to use today is I'm going to connect to that MQTT broker that lives in the DMZ side, right? And we will then buffer the data as it comes into flow, because I need that historical information to perform the transformation piece on top of that. Now, I've already done that. I've created a MQTT real-time buffer here. I'm connecting to that same IP address in the DMZ of Win's MQTT broker. I'm connecting to a specific topic here, and I'm connecting to a custom JSON payload. So the data structure of that payload is custom. Obviously, we do support as well the SparkLib implementation of that, but for today's session, we'll just do a custom payload, and we will then obviously retrieve that data and start buffering it. So what we have is we'll build out this namespace here. So we can see here that I'm connected to that MQTT broker. These are the tags that's currently being pushed to that broker. So obviously we've got the tags for the printer, we've got the tags for the scanner, we've got the tags for the vibration sensors. So if I look at these guys here, they're currently chilling around here at the bottom side. So John, if you don't mind, if you can maybe spin up a few of those guys there, let it run for a few seconds. Remember we said every 5 seconds or so we'll get new values there. And as that new values come in, we will start. There we go. There's a big jump. All right. So we can see that value is coming in real time as John plays with the vibration sensors there. Same with the scanning of the barcodes. So here I've got the barcode scanned. So I can see when John scanned that barcode, it changed. So John, if you don't mind making another drink for us, then obviously it will change that barcode scanner and we will get a new point in here as well. All right, so we're buffering this data, right? And we're doing this for 7 days. And after 7 days, we will do a purge of that data. It's literally for us to be able to have a little bit of historical information to perform our analytics on top of that data. All right, cool. So I've built a little bit of a visualization for this as well. But before we get to the visualize of this, let's talk about 2 things. All right, so the first thing is John's got a barcode that he's going to scan to detect a downtime event. And Jeff, you spoke about it when we spoke about transforming the data into things we call events and things that we call measures. So one of the things is if I want to detect downtime of a piece of equipment, we will in Flow create what we call an event frame. An event frame is literally just a trigger to tell me, hey, when do I want to start an event? When do I want to end an event, so I can add additional context to that information. Now I've created a downtime event here already, and this downtime event will trigger every time John scans the barcode. So if John scans the barcode, I will create a new downtime event for this. I will also create an event if the vibration goes down. So if this vibration of the sensor goes completely down to 0, I will create another event and add some additional context to that. What context do I have? Well, I've got the context of what that downtime event is, as well as I can figure out how long that duration of that downtime is as well. So John, if you don't mind, let's scan one of the downtime reasons there.
Can't hear you, John.
Can't seem to hear John.
Oh, I was muted. because I was
There
making
we go.
noise over here. Do you want me to just scan the downtime event, or do you want me to actually, create a downtime event and scan it?
Create a downtime event and scan it there for us, John. Please.
Okay, alrighty. So let's get these babies going here. Gotta mute.
Cool. And John is going to run them for a few times. The vibration is going to end up. He's going to kill them. There we go.
The blender stopped. I got to figure out why.
Cool.
I think that was just a short stop. They're running again. So that's a short stop.
Cool.
So Lenny, I see a new downtime reason code in my DMZ data hub, so you should be getting that here shortly.
And I coded that as a short stop, Lenny.
Perfect. Let me just see. There we go. It picked up the new event there. And
Excellent.
as soon as we get the new reason for that code, we will attribute that as well. All right, so that seems to work, and we'll get the attribute value for that coming in as well.
Good deal.
So
I'm going to
Lenny,
add some more vibration stuff here and toss some pineapple in this pina colada.
so Lenny, if I can just recap what we're seeing, flow is monitoring the vibration sensor. If the vibration sensor, the rule says if the vibration sensor goes to 0 or next to 0, create an event. John is also using the barcode scanner and scanning a list of downtime reasons, and you're getting that information, essentially coding downtime with that barcode scanner.
Correct. So we've got a list here of enumerations as well. So I'm taking the barcode that John is scanning and I am coding it into a whole bunch of different things. So if John stuck his arm into the blender, that would be a reason for a downtime. We've got the short stops overload. Then we've got one. I had to throw in something from South Africa. So we've got this thing called load shedding. That's when our power utility decides you had enough power for today. Sorry for you. But we then enumerate all of these barcodes that's got scanned into an actual reason into our system as well. And we can see what those reasons are. So there we go. There's the short stop that we had as well. So we are enumerating those downtime events as well. So that's the one way that we can do it, is to create these event frames, and then we can potentially go and visualize this on a visualization front end. And I've got all these little downtime short stops. I can see what it was. I can also go and classify this manually if I wanted to. So if I wanted to reclassify to any one of those reasons, so it was actually John's arm that was in there, I can go and do that manual classification on that as well from the front end here. At the bottom, you can just see the vibrations. So this is the raw data that we're buffering from that MQTT broker. And you can see those raw data coming through as John starts and stops the vibration sensors there. All right, but there's one KPI here that we need to answer, and that is if we are alcoholics and should we be concerned about that. All right, so let's quickly build out a KPI in Flow that's going to track and determine if we are alcoholics based on this run.
Hey, let me know when I should start making more drinks to get you more data.
I will do that, John. All right, so I've got my model here, and in my model I've got my production, right? And I'm going to measure John's throughput. Okay, so the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into the buffer that we're buffering the data, and I'm going to look at the barcodes that's been scanned. So there's the raw tag. So currently John has made 3 drinks up until now.
Yep.
All right, so what I'm going to do in Flow is I'm going to take this tag and I'm just going to add it to my throughput here. So I'm going to add it here, and this is going to be John scanning a drink. All right. Right, so this is the source tag that I'm going to do. Now, what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to now count how many times does John do this in a minute interval. So I'm taking the raw tag. I'm now creating a transformation of that raw tag into a period. I've created minutely periods because we have such little data here. And I'm going to go and create a count. So I'm going to count how many times does John do this per minute. And inside of Flow, I've got a whole range of these different aggregation types that I can apply to the data. In my case, I want to count how many times John does this. All right, so let's deploy this out. The Flow engine is going to do its thing. It's got a backfill, so we do have capability to backfill on historical data to do this information. And if I refresh here, I can see, oh, there we go. John, in that minute period, at least had a few drinks. So John, you can scan, if you don't mind, a few times now, a few times over a few seconds while I'm busy doing this, and we'll see how Flow handles that. All right, so this is the amount that he did in that particular minute.
Hey, Lenny,
What I would like, yes,
am I scanning drink type or down? Or what am I scanning?
drink types, John.
I was busy making drinks, so I was distracted.
Okay, cool. Drink types, cool. All right, so let's do that. Let's now count how many of these has been done for the day so far. So what I'm going to do in Flow is I'm going to do what we call a progressive roll-up. So I can see how many has been done for the hour so far, how many has been done for the shift so far, and how many has been done for the day so far. So let's deploy these guys out as well.
So this is where that sense of time in your model comes into play, right? Understanding shifts and calendars.
What is a shift? What is a day? Does a day start at 6? Does a day start at 7? Whatever the case is, 100%. So if we look at this guy, you'll see it will increase as John now scans, and all the barcodes that he sees there, this will now increase for the day so far. And every minute we will get the new raw data, we will calculate it, and we will start counting this up until we get a day-to-day kind of total. All right. So what I can do with this is I can now go and determine what is an average of this information. Okay. So let's very quickly do an average of how fast John is doing. I'm going to add a calculation here. And this is going to be my moving average. And in here, I'm just going to do it for the past 10 minutes, because that's really all the data that we've got. You'll obviously do it for a little bit longer than that. So I'm going to look at a range of data. In this case, it's going to be for my 10 minutes. And I'm going to go and add this into my expression here. And I'm going to look at the average, just a plain simple average of what John is doing. Perfect. From this average, I'm going to project this into the future. All right, so let's deploy this out. I'm going to add another calculation here, and this is going to be my projected value of drinks. I'm going to project this 10 periods into the future, so 10 minutes into the future. Let's deploy that out. And in here, all I have to do is look at a previous range. Based on that information, again, it's going to be for the previous 10 minutes there. Right, let's add that in, validate, and let the Flow engine do its thing. So now we're going to have a projection going into the future of where we're going to end up potentially based on John's average. Let's do exactly the same. Let's do exactly the same there. Let's move that as a projected average. So let's do that for the day as well. So let's just deploy the day-to-date aggregate, and let's add it to our visualization. So I'm going to just make a little bit of space here for us. I'm going to add a time series trend on this. So there's normal time-based chart for the minutes. And I'm going to go and open this up. Let's add the day-to-date projected value in here. And let's also just add in our current value where we're sitting at, our current day-to-date. Right, I'm going to make this an area chart, and I'm going to make the day-to-date just a line. And I'm just going to give it a label so I can see what the actual values that we're projecting we're going to hit. So I'm going to do just the last value there. Last thing I need to do is just make sure that I'm plotting this into the future. So I'm just going to say plot it to the end of the day for me right there. And if I did everything correctly, hopefully, when I refresh here, we will get a value 21. We are for sure alcoholics in this. All right. So it looks like we're going to end up, as John carry on there, with 21 drinks at the end of the day based on these current run rates. So I think the KPI is answered. We are definitely alcoholics.
Okay.
So is it time for some more data, Lenny?
Yeah, what are you guys going to drink? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. There are 7 of us, excluding the bartender. Not bad. Not bad for a day.
Not bad for a day. All right, so I know it's a very little sample set, and I know I had to do it with very small minutely aggregates, but just the point that I can use an average of what we're currently doing with John just scanning barcodes, and literally we're able to predict at the end of the day we're going to end up with 21 bottles. I think that's quite remarkable for having it at the beginning of just a barcode being scanned and being passed into some actionable information around what's going to happen. I think that's quite cool.
Yeah, let's get some more data going through here. What do you say, Lenny?
Sure, why not?
Hey,
Alrighty.
where else can you deliver that data? I mean, dashboard, great, right? But we've got an MQTT broker sitting there. Can we feed that data back out if we wanted to feed that? Not in real time. I'm just asking, can we get that KPI outside of Flow pretty easily?
Yes. So just like we had the data source, the last part of the 5-step process is, as you said, is to bridge it. We've got a concept of what we call a consumer. Now, a consumer can be either it's database. So we do this quite a lot. We push data into a data mart. The cool thing about that is the data is already contextualized. It's nice and clean. It is already aggregated, so it makes it great for data mart applications. But to your point, yes, I could push this back to an MQTT broker, and I could have connected to the same MQTT broker in the DMZ, and I can start pushing that data to that broker out if I wanted to as well. 100%. Okay. So yes, we could do that as well.
And
that would be the already aggregated data or the KPI information. Now I could share back onto that MQTT broker as well.
And that's one of the kind of crucial points, and Alan, we can talk about it later on, but the fact that the reason Flow's one of the sponsors of Integrate Live, the reason that they're part of this is because that openness, that data did not just die in Flow, right? Like it's not about keeping it captive. There's other tools that you could potentially use to do this. There's stuff in the market that you could do this with. It's that getting it back out that becomes the problem. So cool. Well done, Lenny. Continue on. Sorry.
I think also, just to catch up a little bit, Lenny, here's the reality of what just happened, right? I mean, we ran through that really quickly, but we didn't go outside of Flow to do that. All that happened quickly within Flow, and you start to think about where that can apply specifically in a control systems type environment where that data is typically locked into that proprietary system. Well, now you can start to, for instance, for us, for oil and gas, we were doing this very thing with trying to say, hey, at the beginning of the day, we are expecting to produce X amount of barrels. We would track through the day, are we on target or not on target? And you could make adjustments throughout the day based off of that projected value. And it's incredibly valuable. And that I don't have to go outside and do it. I can actually do it within the control system if I needed to. But then now that you have MQTT, I can get that data out securely and back to my control system securely. That's amazing.
Perfect. All right. Maybe one last thing. Very quickly. Yeah. I know we spent a lot of time on the scanning. We spent a lot of time on the projection of this to see how many drinks we're going to end up with. But what about just something very, very simple? We haven't really done too much about the vibrations that we're monitoring, right? So I use it to detect the downtime events, but something that I very easily could do here is I can say, you know what? That vibration looks a little bit too high there. Maybe John threw in too much ice. Maybe his arm really got stuck into the blender. But that
ice, a lot of pineapple that time.
A lot of pineapple, cool.
Yeah.
So let's make a little bit of an alert on that. Let's say if the maximum vibration for a minute period is above, I don't know, 5. Let's put it at in a limit condition as well. So we can do that as well. Let's take this vibration channel here. Let's again do that, and this is going to be my max vibration for the minutes. Sorry about my spelling. Let's change this now to maximum. All right. And what I can do here is now I can add a limit. All right. I can go into my toolbox here. I can go and create different limit set points. So this will be my site limit that I want to evaluate against. And I'm just going to add that into the limit section here. So let's say anything above 5, I want to treat as a limit condition. Cool. Let's do that. I'm going to backfill this on the historical data, and let's deploy this out. So what this will do, again, it will create the minutely bucket periods for me. There's a minute period where I was above my limit. It's 5.6. And let's quickly add this to the chart. So I'm going to go back to my information here, open up my dashboard. I'm just resizing this and getting a little bit out of space here, but let's just do that. And let's just add a very simple time-based table report this time to that as well. So let's do that. Open this guy up. Let's add this maximum vibration here as my table report. And let's now say, please show me the limit itself, and then change the color based if the limit condition has been breached or not.
And I'm assuming, Lenny, we could define more than one limit. Like, for instance, if we had a bad bearing in the blender, that BDU value would be much higher. I'm assuming we could define multiple limits that would report differently depending on where that level fell, right?
So yeah, you can have different limits, and we can have multiple instances of those limits as well. But yeah, you can have more than one limit configured on a value as well.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. So let's refresh here. It's going to slot in a little table report in the middle there. Sorry, I had a lot of data in there. There we go.
There we go.
There's that one. It doesn't show too nicely. Very hard to see. So let's just change my limit configuration a little bit here. It's text on a table, so it doesn't make too much sense that I changed the font color. So let's just make that white for now. And let's just refresh this guy. And we're going to have a much bigger or much better indication of what things look like. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. So
Nice.
we know exactly at 1741 the limit occurred, and this is the only point we have to discuss in our meeting, right? Why do I have to care about any other point in time other try to understand what happened at this exact point?
Okay.
The whole point is to create visualization that kinds of helps you driving your decision making, not to spend too much time around the other values, but really just focusing into this and try to figure out why this happened at that particular point in time.
What can you do to answer that question? Can you drill in?
So I can drill in here. I can look at the details of this guy, and this is now the actual raw tag that it's coming from. Where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from BDU channel 1.max data. So yeah, I can drill into this. I can look at the history for this as well. If someone did manually correct the data or anything, I can also see if that data point has recalculated or has changed over time as well.
Cool.
All right. Hey, Lenny, I'm getting some push alerts from some ESCOM app over here. I think I better get some more drinks made here soon. You know what I mean, Brew?
Cool.
So I run a little more, get some done here? What do you say?
Let's run.
Okay, let's run. All right.
Lenny, I think the other thing I noticed was when you were designing this in the designer, you had the grid, you were moving the squares around. I don't know if you defined a size there, but it looks like this would scale up, scale down pretty easy based on, what screen you were using, loading the actual dashboard in your browser. I'm assuming it just maintains kind of that aspect that you have here.
Correct. And you've got these minimize and maximize button here. So if you want a little bit more real estate, I can zoom in and zoom out. And now if I drag it, it's gonna grow. So if you've got a long pane that we wanna build, it's going to do that, and then it's going to just give you scroll bars in the browser as well. But to your point, yes, you've got the flexibility to move these things around where you want to put it, and to make sure we will try and fit it into a size if the browser sizes is different. At some point, it's going to catch up, unfortunately, but we do try to keep that aspect ratio 100%.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Any other questions?
I think let's wrap the project up and then let's move into kind of the
What
discussion.
just happened? Lenny, what the hell? Look at my camera.
John, did you move to South Africa?
Well, I get the push alerts from ESCOM. Good thing the computer is on a battery backup, and we've got an emergency light in here because we've had load shedding in Matthews. Bloody hell. Glad we got these drinks ready, because what do you do when there's load shedding? Drink?
Well, I wouldn't say that's what I do, John, but very close.
Well, some do. All right, so I better code this.
So code this to load shedding for us, John. There we go.
I've done that.
So John is just sending that reason code for us, and we're going to pull it in, and we're going to associate it with this event here, and we should get a new event that says that load shedding just happened on that as well. Cool.
It was a quick one. Thank you. Gosh.
And so if we talk about the little bit of the data delay that we're seeing, I think we should address it, right? So what we're doing is we're hopping data from Matthews to where's our OPC?
The DMZ is in it's in a data center closer to the Charlotte airport. So
okay, and then Lenny's in Johannesburg connected to it, and then Lenny, Flow is usually consuming data from historical sources and other databases. This live buffer tool, I want to frame it for our audience, is probably not meant to be a exact real-time, no latency operation deployment, correct? This is more of a, hey, if you're okay with a 1 minute delay in latency, is that how you would position it?
It depends on the technology. So NQTT reports on exception. We should get it with the timestamp that NQTT has pushed it.
Okay.
So at least we would get that right. OPC UA, it being a polling, a little bit more of a polling architecture. We'll get it as the poll comes in. But to your point, Jeff, this is not ever meant to be a full-blown industrial historian application. It's literally to buffer the data, have that available for us to do the transformation and the aggregates, and then we're going to discard it to do that as well. So it's literally just to cater for the historical values on that as well.
Got it.
Yeah, let's not take a hammer and make everything a nail, right? Let's not make this into an HMI or into a historian. Let's use it as it's designed and what it's used for. And when done so, you're going to extract value from it, tremendous value from it. So,
yep, cool.
100%. Cool.
Lenny, is that everything you wanted to show? Should we move back over to project?
That is it. I think we've proved the point. We are alcoholics, especially based on load shedding. So there's the correlation, John. Load shedding causes us to be alcoholics.
There we go.
Excellent.
All right. Avancian, why don't we walk through price? Software Toolbox, Lenny, let's walk through price with Avancian, and then let's talk about integration work to expect also. Sound good?
Absolutely. Ian?
Sure. Yeah, so I think we utilize 3 different tools here. The pricing we're showing, obviously always potential subject to change, but these are for subscriptions, kind of like your lowest price to enter here. So utilizing Omni server with the OPC UA DA server, about 500, Data Hub coming in around $4,000, Flow coming in around 5. So the total solution right around that 10 price mark for a year. Very reasonable and gets us access to all of these tools. And we pointed out some key features that are included in all of those here as well. There's also options for perpetual licensing, but that would come on a case-by-case basis, right? Software Toolbox and Flow would be able to walk through what makes the most sense for any given situation.
Okay.
And in addition to, you have the ability to scale up from this limited use case, and then you can start adding business use cases to this model as well, because you have the additional connection points, additional calculations, and additional budget through the DMZ.
Great call. Scaling up is always essential.
So that's usually where Alan comes in and says, hey, here's the pushback. Here's what you're not thinking about on pricing model. Alan, you want to do your piece?
well, first thing you need to understand is the Omni Toolbox or the Omni server becomes incredibly impactful when you're talking about just start to think about, yeah, we did, drinks and this things, but now think about a line where you're producing something, and then when you do that changeover, you're going to have printers specifically where, hey, we're going to do changeover, we're going to change the product we're making. Now all the printers on that line need to be updated to the new. You can see in real time, it's literally just you send the command, printers are ready to go. You don't have to go to the line, you don't have to do all those things. So the ability to now not just be able to extract the data from these devices, but be able to really be able to get that data back down to that device. And Data Hub is amazing. Now, again, this is an entry level opportunity to be able to really get your feet into the water. I would say down into the waist deep level where you're actually going to be able to effectively do a project based off of this pricing. For a small scale, that's amazing to be able to have that type of flexibility, be able to really be in that industry 4.0 category of being able to decouple your data, move the data around where needed securely, and then be able to get it back where you need to be. So I don't have very much pushback on this, just because I think the opportunity is so different with this pricing with what we've done in the past, right? In the past, we've talked about, hey, you've got one device, you can connect to a couple different things, what have you. This is, you can connect to 10 TPI devices, and you've got 1,000 measures and 50 events that you can do with Flow. You could do a good sized project here with this price.
Well, and you could connect at the same time to the vibration monitors, Alan, an unlimited number from a commercial point of view of all these other devices. I didn't bring our scale in here this time, but if you have weight scales, et cetera. So yeah, and we don't put any tag count limitations on that Data Hub and the DMZ, and that can move a lot of data.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing incremental with that is the time and effort to implement the protocols, to configure the protocols for each of those, which, depending on the protocol, is not that much of an additional incremental time.
You saw it live here.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last time with Omni server, we've had instances where we've connected so many devices that the limitation was really on the not Omni server itself, but the virtual environment which we were running it in.
Well, didn't you do a work with some of these in terms of automating changeover on printer setups?
A lot of printers.
That stuff on the bottom of that can?
Here,
we used to have to do that by hand.
Here, John. Show. There you go. So yeah, think of your Campbell soup can, the laser print on the bottom, or the jet print on the bottom, or whatever the technology is that prints on the bottom. Can be
the Leibinger printer.
There we go.
It is, yeah. And depending on what product you're running, you got to change the various parameters, which were being done by hand. A lot of printers, 20, 30 parameters, time adds up. Getting that tied into a MES ERP system to automate it, it not only saves you the time and efficiency, but now you have something to track against as a measurable outcome.
So that's where your ROI comes in, right?
The fat fingers, right? You get a lot of fat fingers in this potential. And so you have the example that Alan rattled off there is the one that John just kind of showed. So
cool.
I'll speak to Doug's question. All right. So Doug Miller asked the question: has Flow predictive analytics been tested against rod pump controller, dyno cards? And no, but I would absolutely be in favor of helping test that. And so if you want to do it, Doug, let's get Lenny looped in, and let's do a test, man. I think it could be impactful.
That'd be cool.
Well, Alan, I'll add, we haven't talked about that, Software Toolbox is Flow's local partner, and we've had a lot of experience in oil and gas, so something we'd be happy to team up with Lenny if it made sense to help him out.
I also want to address the data hub, right? So there's a tool here that unfortunately hasn't had the visibility that it really deserves, because the ability to be able to have that data hub, which I think a very good analogy was, a data Software Toolbox considers themselves like a data plumber, right? It can take that data, bring it in, and do whatever you need to do going out there, but they can do it securely, right? It's not just a matter of MQTT. You can now do the OPC UA securely point to point, right? And so that's impactful. And then being able to take that OPC UA or any of that data, can transform it to MQTT, transform it to OPC UA, in DMP3, whatever it is. Yeah. I'm very excited about learning more about it. I wish I had known about it earlier on in my career, because I feel like I've missed a lot of really clean, smooth implementations of transferring data around, and I instead did it the very hammer and nail type of way.
Well,
Let's talk about a little bit of that data transfer, the hammer and nail, which you think of as being a lot of integration work. Let's talk about just this project real quick and talk about some of the. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to say. Matt and Ian, an end user is watching this. They're saying, "Hey, this fits my use case." How do they know whether or not they've got the skill sets internally of what they need to take what they've just seen and go and do it? What are some of the check marks that you as integrators would say, here's kind of the benchmarks you need to be able to hit to have a successful project on this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we saw a whole lot of stuff here. We saw a lot of moving and shaking between various different layers in the pyramid. There are some considerations, right? So you need to first you have to have your business case, obviously, that yours defined specifically. Be your vibration thing, be on the top of the hopper. That's feeding the filler, and maybe that's the place that your vibration problem could come in, or whatever other sensor type issue. But identifying those data sources and filling in the sensor gaps, most of the time the sensors exist in the world. It's just getting connection to them, and that's where the software toolbox, Omni server components are so critical and very efficient in being able to get that data. The physical connection and the network on the plant floor. We have a lot of connectivity here already pre-set up. Sometimes there's not that connection to be it the sensor itself or the PLC or whatnot. So taking the steps there to make sure that the physical connection's good. Developing drawings, documentation, all that's very important for posterity and for supporting it long term. How you tie that into the plant control system and so forth are all things that we consider into the SCADA and whatnot. Most importantly, as a test plan, though, I think putting this kind of stuff in, there's an opportunity, as we've seen, for some challenges, and those things are things, even if you test it the most, you will always end up finding some sort of issues that you want to eliminate, reduce and manage that risk a ton with that good test plan. And then last but not least, Lenny was talking about all the opportunities and possibilities and the ways that you could leverage the data forward in your organization. That adoption is something that's a human element thing that you have to foster and have people hug the data, if you will, and lead them to the data to be able to see what they can get out of it. It's a very important component. The human element is sometimes we forget about it. There's a lot of cool technical stuff. But at the end of the day, it's going to be people interfacing with the technology. How do they get the most out of it? And how do they ensure success? So that's those are the things that we see. If you have that ability inside of your facility or inside of your organization to address those issues, that's awesome. That's what we see as the top issues. If you don't, there's always a good integrator out there that can help you, and Advancion's not a bad one if you want to tap us into that as well.
And I think too, that's where you make a decision as the end user, and you say, do I need the service work side of it? Do I need boots on the ground? Do I want someone just checking over my work, or do I just need a couple of recommendations? And one of the things I love about Software Toolbox is that this is not a sales plug, right? It's just the heart of that organization is that if you're buying product through Software Toolbox is giving you their data plumbers, their pros, as guides along the way. So you've got some options there.
But we can guide them through everything they see on the screen here.
Yeah.
All of the technologies. And, for integrators, that can be a big risk reducer because we're sharing in it. making sure it all works and going through what you saw live here.
Kudos
Including the bumps,
to the
including
team.
the documentation error that we had. Remember that?
Yeah, kudos to the team. This has been a live thing online here, but in the real world, we've seen the benefit of working with Software Toolbox and their team on how to configure, set up, make sure the protocols are right, make sure the right backslashes in the right spot with the right carriage return, etc. Those things they're invaluable when you're trying to hit a project schedule.
Yeah. And I started 32 years ago in tech support, and a mentor told me, beware the cabling and the hookups. And, having integrators like Avancion who are on site dealing with all that and all the things Matt talked about. Somebody's got to do that. We're bit heads and data plumbers and bartenders.
Another pitfall that I've encountered multiple times over the years is you can't always trust vendors' protocol documentation to be accurate. So having those troubleshooting tools to be able to pinpoint, okay, there's supposed to be a carriage return there, but the documentation didn't tell me there was supposed to be a carriage return there. So you got to account for things like that.
So if I had a device that I wanted to talk to, Kevin, and I didn't have the resources in hand, I could box that thing up, send it to you. You'd build me out the protocol, get it working, and send it back to me.
We could do it that way. We would absolutely start with asking for a make and model. If you've got a protocol document we can take a look at. There's a lot we can do without you having to ship us a device.
Yeah.
But jump on a screen share.
Not a make and model. If there's not, I'm assuming that you've tackled those situations where it's some older equipment, figured out how to talk to it.
Absolutely. If there's no protocol documentation, depending on the protocol, sometimes we can use a packet snuffer, a Wireshark if it's Ethernet, things of that nature to try to detect what the protocol format is.
You've got something that can talk to it. Something to generate those messages. Unless it's a device you just turn it on.
If it's not unsolicited, right.
Scales, you turn them on and they start throwing data at you usually.
Yeah.
So
if there's existing legacy software that you're trying to replace that can still send requests, get responses, we use a packet sniffer to see what's it sending.
I just was considering, we got this dishwasher, and now with Flow, I think I can set up some alerts for the wife to say, hey, it hasn't ran in the last 10 hours. Maybe there's an opportunity there.
Maybe that's one thing that I want to add to Matt's conversation as well, based on what you just said now, Alan. Yes, I agree with you, Matt. Human aspect is so critical to have adoption of. Don't try to go with these things alone. Have the guy that's been on site for 30 years that if he listens to a turbine, he says, that turbine is off. That's the guys you need to build in these rules to capture this tribal knowledge that we're going to lose in a few years, because that's the reality, right? Coupled to that, Alan, you've got a pretty good business case there. So I would say, if you're going to look at this type of stuff, make sure you've got the business case sorted out. What are you trying to achieve? Do you want to reduce your scrap? Do you want to reduce your intensity based on unit produced? Make sure you've got a good business case, because if you don't have a business case and you're going to show a guy, if I show a guy this dashboard, if I can share again, if I'm just going to share a guy a dashboard like this, and I'm not addressing his concern or his need, will he ever look at it again tomorrow?
Nope.
100%.
Yeah,
if he doesn't care about load shedding in South Africa, what's the point? So all I'm saying is make sure you've got that business case buy-in, what the guys want to see, create that stickiness, and if you've got that stickiness, it will create so much value when you deliver this type of stuff.
And Doug has properly identified the place that we'd have to censor out. He says, Alan, I think you'll need sensors in the doghouse to monitor temp and Well done.
Perfect time to use MQTT as well.
Oh, great. Well done.
I think for Alan,
proximity sensors.
the business goal for Alan's thing might be to lead to divorce might be his goal there if he's going to manage his wife's dishwasher usage.
No.
So as an integrator, we might have to no bid that. We're going to be out on that one.
Goodness gracious! Sorry, Carol.
Tell
Sorry.
you that.
Where's your sense of adventure?
I know he's got a sense of adventure. He's committed to buying Carol an RV.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
It is true.
Watch
Carol
it.
and I have been talking about it. She says you're in.
You just don't know it yet, Alan.
Oh, I know. Jeff, I've got a friend of mine who lives in North Korea, and I asked him, hey, how's it going? And he said, I can't complain.
Oh my goodness. It's weird that you bring that up. You know how Hollywood activists are always doing this thing for human rights. The latest Hollywood actress has decided she's going to eat 5 gallons of ice cream in order to raise awareness of the problems in North Korea. It's Reese.
Witherspoon.
Well, she's not going to use a fork.
I was gonna tee it up for you. I knew where you were going. I was gonna tee it up, and Don just.
All right. Hey, we got a serious question. Serious question has come in. I've got Brad asked. He asked this last week as I was cutting tape. Here's where he's seen. So Brad sits. I know Brad. He sits on the enterprise side, right? He said, "Hey, so we're starting down here at the sites, right? And you're connecting. You're abstracting. You're aggregating. You're extrapolating the data through this process. How do you ensure that you can take a resultant data point and track it back to a required source data if you have a problem?" Now, I think we could look at this from a site side. We could look at this from the enterprise side. So why don't chime in? How are you going to track back to the original data point?
All right. So
I think, Lenny, you kind of showed us some of that with the dashboard and seeing what the data point was. Now, to go further back would probably require a little bit more knowledge on the tools. And I think this actually ties back into talking about adoption of the deliverable in the end case for a user. Obviously, we want to make sure the target audience knows how to utilize the dashboard, but even then at a deeper level, understanding how it's built, the tools, the connecting pieces, where those go, is a different level of training for probably a different audience, which could also be captured in the conversations around when we're implementing one of these solutions. Who needs to know what the content on the dashboard is for actionable decisions? Who, if anyone, should be trained up on how we built this solution, how they can continue using it at a deeper level, and how they can then continue to grow it within their own organization, right? So you would be able to trace it back from that tag. We know where it is in flow. We can go find that tag in Data Hub. We need to know what server Data Hub's on. We can find the tag. We can find it in Omni server. We can jump back in hoops, but it might not be, that answer might not be immediately obvious through general just reporting dashboard, right?
Well, part of the naming and everything that you do in the dashboard too, though, is ensuring that you name things in a way, and that's obviously a key part of the design phase of things. So you don't just end up with, channel 1, device 1, tag 1. That's nice. What's that mean?
Yeah, and that's that's part of the in this case, Omni server was our data source for 3 different devices, and you want to make sure that you're naming your topics representatively of the device they're connecting to. The pieces of data, you want to label those so that they're representative of the piece of data that you're collecting. In our case, it was a vibration sensor on channel 1 attached to the vibration monitor. So due to the naming, we knew what device it was on and which channel it was on. We could trace it all the way back to where it's actually connected to the blender.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here at Flow and I see that name. I ought to be able to go in the Data Hub and the DMZ, see that name, and then go down to the Omni server and see that name and go, okay, there's the source. And I've been through this in Flow implementations where people said, oh yeah, that's the right tag. And I get the data and I look at it and go, really? How is that gas flow? Well, you got a gas leak problem if so. And trace it back and they go, oh yeah, no, we changed that.
The other important piece here is really that the beauty of what MQTT delivers, right? So you had a physical device that was publishing data to Omni server. Omni server sent it to Data Hub, which then broadcast that out, and anyone could subscribe to it and bring it. So you had another step there with Omni server. prior to publishing out. But what you don't have is I've got a device that's talking to a PLC, that's talking to an HMI, that's talking to a historian, that's talking to, a proxy server that's then putting it into a database, and then it's getting into IT, which is typical of the way that we get stuff in IT. Now you have the device, the software for that device, getting it to Data Hub, published out. Now your means of actually data quality and data resilience for that, you've increased it by 90%.
Yeah.
And so I think that is really the beauty of where this Industry 4.0 transforming our data and getting it decoupled from these systems so that you can collect it and broadcast it and subscribe to it. Done.
And the thing that, as you were building this out, guys, I just kept hitting in my mind, and to those that don't know, my background in this is all time series historian, right? Where I wanted to start asking, okay, so if you weren't following this architecture, if you were trying to build these KPIs, if you're trying to track this downtime, if you're trying to do this in your current systems, where is someone going to try to build this? Where are the one or two places they're going to try to build this every time? First, your answers, and then let's talk about why that might be a mistake and the problems with that. Where's your gut originally to Ian? Where do you see people trying to build this stuff?
Can you remember through the question again?
Yeah.
I'll answer for you, and then after my answer, maybe it'll help. So what Jeff is asking is, if you didn't have Data Hub and MQTT and being able to subscribe to it, from a typical system, how would you do it, right? So I'll tell you, here's how we would do it. We would take some kind of software that would be SNMP or something that we could extract the data from that legacy device, get it into serial into, whether it was some other kind of driver that could get it to my HMI. Once that data gets in my HMI, I'm going to create a tag. We're going to then send it to the historian. It'll get sent to probably a database. Tableau would then get it, and we would create some report in the enterprise side that says, hey, this is what we think your printer is doing right now. And it's not you're not going to send commands back to it. You're just going to be reading from it. And then the predictive side, what would you do? You would just have to send that to some kind of machine learning in the cloud. But then by the time you contextualize it, get it ready, get it clean, the ROI is just gone.
Right.
I mean, I think you're right. That you actually end up probably creating newer and more silos of data, essentially, because there's implementations as well where you may already have it in the historian, but are also now replicating data to SQL separately to capture some of the time series things more efficiently. Seen that common when in certain batching scenarios, and now you're trying to add in another layer on top of that for reporting. If it was SQL, it might be simple. You got your database, you got your SSRS, but you're not getting that same level of predictive analytics. So there's another solution now. So I think in other implementations, there do end up being more tools and then therefore more silos for data, where it's harder to keep consistent data when you're using SQL and historian unless they're stacked on top of each other, which isn't always the case. It's easy to get away with that situation. Bad habit, but easy to get away with, right?
Well, and I think you'd be writing a lot of code too if you didn't have these tools.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's what everybody was doing 32 years ago, writing custom code.
And the custom code works well if you've got one device. Hey, look, I've proved the point, right? I was able to connect to this thing. Okay, go roll it out to 100 of them. Then your technical debt just kills you.
Well, then
What happens when the guy who wrote it leaves?
Yeah, well, the guy leaves, or you upgrade the software, and then all of a sudden your custom code breaks, and then you realize the guy who wrote that 20 years ago is no longer there, and nobody can read it. There's no documentation. Yeah.
I think, Lenny, you solved a problem in a mining company for that exact reason, where they had to replace a bunch of LLC code.
100%. They had to code a lot of these rules and business rules in PLC. So it was, think about it. If you touch a PLC, the amount of recommissioning time you have to do because you touch the controller, it's insane. The other point I want to make is, yes, a lot of these things end up in some database and you pluck up a Power BI or Tableau to it. The thing with that is, if that data is not already put back as a transaction, think about a raw flow transmitter. Simple example, raw flow transmitter, and you're putting that data into a SQL database. How would you get Tableau to read that data to perform a total for the day based on a raw flow transmitter?
Well, I can
That
tell you how
changes on-
we didn't send it. We had to use a system that would do an average, then we'd send it to another data warehouse, and then we'd have the daily averages, and that's all we were able to pull back into our Tableau report.
100%, because those guys don't understand we live in a world where we store stuff in Delta.
Yes.
If you just pull an average of something that changes in Delta, good luck. It's not a time-weighted average. And these tools don't understand time-weighted averages. They don't understand counter retrievals or totalizers that goes down to zero again, all this nice stuff. And that's where we understand this world of manufacturing. And if we can give a way to give the IT guys something they understand, transactions, hey, it's a win-win combination, right?
Yep.
We were on a consultancy call just the other day. Guy runs two factories for a food and bev type of deal. Hey, what's your number one pain point? What's the one problem if you could solve right now that it would make your life easier? He said, my entire executive team has no visibility on what a unit costs to manufacture. We have no visibility at the end of the day. What did it cost to make these 24,000 units? If I could just deliver to them my per costing per day, that would solve so many problems for me.
Imagine if you could add energy into that as part of that cost. You know, we did that application, Lenny, with a brewery. They're looking at steam, electricity, water, gas, and that could actually go down to the product by day and say, this day we made X cases and this much energy went into each one of those cans of beer.
100%. And that's the business case, right? It's all he wants.
Yeah.
That is his business case. It doesn't have to be this massive project with, I think when people hear these words about digital transformation and all these buzzwords, they think, that's going to be a $4 million price post that I need to fork out. No, it's not.
Well, here's the kicker.
It's as simple as you want to make it, to be honest.
Here's the kicker. Do you know why this OT guy, keep the plant running, do you know why he cares so much to give that to the executives? Because he recognizes he's in an operation right now where they are going to spend him out of business. He doesn't make them aware of the money that they actually have or don't have available. Real simple.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, I'm curious. That's why they call me George. John, your bio last week, and what I know about you is you were geeking out at this stuff back on Commodores and Palm, right?
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit. Let's get out of the tech talk. I want to hear a little bit about Software Toolbox, founder story. When did it form? Why did it form? And what's your mission right now? Where are you headed?
Formed in 1996. Formed because I'd spent 6 years working in tech support, field support, implementing and selling HMI software and dealing with all these third-party products. That the software was good, but this whole ability to have a conversation, to talk about alternatives, it was just painfully slow. So our mission was, and still remains, to rid the world of bad experiences when working with add-on software in the industrial automation space.
And so we saw Data Hub today. We saw Flow. We saw Omni Server.
Yep.
One of those is your baby, right? Like your team.
Well, Omni Server, the story of Omni Server is that product was created in 1995, and we were selling that product from the day we started as a reseller. And the original developer decided he wanted to go off and write game software. It was much more lucrative and fun for him. So that created a little problem for that company. So we didn't want Omni Server to go away, so we acquired it. Since then, we've been adding functionality, adding capabilities. That visual protocol editor that you saw, our team developed and created that and is continuing to evolve that. And we have some exciting things coming around that, as well as some additional connectors coming in Omni Server throughout the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay. So Software Toolbox's kind of product stack. You've got Omni Server, Data Hub, You resell for Flow.
Yep.
I'm missing one at least.
Yeah, You're probably missing Top Server. We're close partners with another Integrate Live supporter, Kepware. Top Server is our brand labeled version of their technology. Been working with them since 1996, and have put tens of thousands of licenses out there and supported them. When you look at the Top Server in our stack with the other products like Data Hub and Flow, it like I said earlier, allows Software Toolbox to kind of be that one. Let's talk about your problem. And there might be 3 or 4 ways to solve the problem, and no 2 problems are alike. So let's talk about your specifics, your needs, and see if we can help you through that stack.
Partners, end users, everybody's welcome to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, there's one other part of the stack I want to mention, and I think we ought to do this in a future session, add this to the bar, is connectivity to SAP. Another one of our tech stack products is OPC Router that through a visual configuration, we can make connections native to SAP. And we actually have a little SAP instance running here in the office. So I think that might be fun to add to this that in a future session.
I nominate Win to drive the SAP demo.
Sounds good.
Well, we're going to have some more team members getting involved in this. Several of our support team are watching this live. May still be watching it live. And Wayne and Kevin, I hope we inspire them to bring their creativity and come have some fun with this.
I will have a analogy. Well, I don't know if it's an analogy or not, but at Air Energy, when I worked at Air Energy, we had a guy, and his name was Mark Obashane. Amazing guy. The guy was literally like a magician. And here's where his strength was. So what Mark was able to do was he literally was the plumber for all the different applications within the system. So whether it's SAP, whether it was the other, the data warehouse, whether all these different systems that had all the data, if you needed to get data moved around, he was the guy who lived in the middle. He was the guy who you could call and he could tell you, oh yeah, this is how you got to do it. This is how it's got to be done. Software Toolbox is that guy in the middle that has the capability of interacting with all the different applications and getting the data to the other locations that you need to extract value from the data, right?
Right. Well, and part of that is you don't just have that one guy. We have a big whole team. One of the things when I start back to the founder story, when I started this thing, I hated calling a company, telling them something, calling back 3 days later, and it's like I never talked to them. Yeah. And we're big on this. Kevin and Wynn have been around combined 32 years in this company. They know that John's is that in the system? Did you put that in the system? So when you're on vacation, somebody else can look that up. Because that's part of that experience. That was part of that ridding of bad experiences. You have a relationship not just with our people, but really the whole team.
So you all were you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. You're creating a single source of truth.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard Lenny talk about single source of truth a few times.
Yeah. Well, you get a team that helps be that single source of truth. And I do want to add one more thing. One of the things our team will also do. Hey, Wynn, if we don't have a solution that'll fit for somebody, even though we might have 4 things that does it, what are you going to do, Wynn?
I have just last week referred someone to another company because we can't fix the problem. We don't have a solution. So it's, hey, I know of this in the market, you should talk to them, or here's a couple different options if I know of different companies that do the same thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, we want to be a trusted advisor to have customers come to us. They know we're not going to push something on them that's not going to work, and they know we're going to give them good advice.
Let's talk about problems and options. And that's hard to do. We talked about it last week. Hard to find that in the internet-based sales world.
Matt, Ian, you guys talk about problems and solutions a lot.
Yeah, I think they do. That's why they're one of our great partners.
How long has Advancian been in the problem-solving business?
So we started a little bit before John and the Software Toolbox back in '84. So we've been around. Our whole thing was to try to provide a little bit of a human element to this technology stack issue and try to drive not just a project for technology's sake, address the business issue while addressing the people issue. And so we kind of pride ourselves on walking you down the path together and being there with you for the outcome. So we got a bunch of good guys that started back in the day and then carry the torch forward today. But it's all about, for us, it's a lot of change, man. I mentioned it earlier. It's inside of the factory, we're asking folks to go from pencil and clipboard to this flow dashboard that's really awesome. Lenny's comments spot on. It's a lot to swallow, and so you got to figure out how to walk them through it hand in hand to get them adopted.
Do you just make it look like a social media feed?
That's what they expect. That's interesting you say that. Like, most of the people that are coming into manufacturing today have all been used to this thing in their pocket for so long, and seeing all of that. You got to give a nod to that too in the way you design your systems and the accessibility. So, because I think a lot of times this industry thinks of folks a little older and aged than they actually are, and so you have to adopt today's world to the factory.
Yeah.
Hey Lenny, doesn't Flow have an app that can give you a really exciting feed of data from the floor? Probably not as exciting as whatever's the hot buzz. I'd have to ask my college daughters.
Is it in the metaverse yet?
Yeah. It's called Flow Talk.
Get my goggles. Hold on.
So how do you? Yeah. So I guess, John, good question, Lenny. How do you feed? Whether it's through an app or through another streaming, how do you get data out of Flow into today's hottest messaging, mobile?
Yeah. So we do have a messaging component, and as that example that I had where the vibration exceeded a limit, we can use that limit then as a trigger to say, okay, send out a message to whoever. John, you're right. We did have an app. We decided rather to integrate with the guys that does that well. So we have integration now to Teams, so we can put it right there in your Teams channel. We can integrate to Slack. We can integrate to Telegram. We constantly add these notification services to the channels that's already there and already available, probably already on the guy's phone, to be honest.
So I should probably add a Slack channel for my whole team to monitor the blenders, is what you're saying.
I think so, John.
Okay.
So at least
let's put a vibration sensor on the toilets and see what we get.
Notify them that it's running, for sure. And hey, John said monitor the blenders, and that is the closing remarks that's how we know the rundown is officially coming to an end. So last thoughts, let's just go around the horn. Thoughts on the project. What did you learn? What was your takeaways? Favorite thing that you saw? What are you going to do different? Who wants to go first so that I don't put Kevin on? Okay, Ian. Kevin, you're coming next. We're going around clockwise.
Like we were saying, every day is a different problem. These tools are incredibly applicable to solving a lot of those that we face pretty often. And so it's really cool getting to see from the ground up the solution. And we kind of built this based on problems we've solved in the past, right? Very cool example that we've reapplied here. I think there's going to continue to be problems, and I don't doubt the software toolbox of Flow will continue to come up with solutions to help us help others solve those issues, right? That's my quick synopsis.
Well said, Ian. Kevin.
I think it was very realistic. The fact that we ran into problems made it more so. I'm glad that today I was able to use the diagnostic tools to show people how I found that, how I fixed it, because that's very pertinent to any real world scenario. I would do the same thing even if we weren't doing this live in front of an audience. And we got it working. So that's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
When?
I think the biggest thing that I learned is about documenting the change, especially in the last minute change notice. John's like, hey, are we using SSL? I half documented it thinking, oh, this is easy, which it was. But when you're rushed, you don't always, you need to follow the documentation even more. And I think it's very funny that one backslash and one checkbox can ruin a live demo. And that is hilarious to me. That just two little minor things can just wreck the whole thing.
That's that joke of the whole event.
That's right. Well, one of those great quotes, Mike Tyson, don't get a face tattoo. Second famous Mike Tyson quote is, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Right. And so that documentation, when we take a punch, we have the documentation to glance through. So yeah, great takeaway one. No matter how familiar you are with it, write it down. Let's go to Lenny and then we'll kick down to John.
What about Matt?
We're going to hit Matt.
Oh, okay.
I'm zigging and zagging.
Okay.
I think, as always, when we talk about the 4 pillars or the analytics continuum, I know it's a very big word for late in a rundown, but if you look at the analytics continuum about descriptive, diagnostic analytics, descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, and then prescriptive light being the final one, it always amazes me how much value you can derive from just the plain simple diagnostic and descriptive analytics. I know we didn't have enough historical information, unfortunately, and again, another thing is, the more historical info you have, the better your prediction is going to be. But just in 10 minutes, I was able to at least get some value projected to kind of see where we're going to end up. So, and I think a lot of business value still lies in those 2 layers of analytics. 100%.
Great. All right, John.
So, had a great time doing this, building it live, working with everybody here, learning. Don't let your bartender put the labels on your devices and document them. Don't let your bartender make audibles at the last minute. We're good at bartending, but yeah. And for the record, so it's on the recording, this is not a licensed establishment. This is not an actual bar. Don't come in here and try to buy a drink. But, I've made these drinks in my home and I'll be happy to share them with all of you. And yeah, thanks for all the creativity of Ancion and Lenny and Jeff and Alan. So really had a lot of fun with this, as it should be. And I'm getting too old for board can demos.
This was definitely unique. Thanks, John.
Yep.
All right, Matt, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, obviously the exciting aspect of all the different technology stacks and all that stuff aside, what I'm excited about and what's a real world application is the value of phase startup. So we had a 2-phase startup here. We had an implementation halfway, and then we implemented the rest of it in the second phase of the outage. So that happens all the time. It's something that we do a lot, and that's why you figure out what you can bite off and when to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, and then know when to run. So that's the thing I saw today, in the past 2 weeks.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Alan.
I'll need vibration sensors for the vacuum. For the never mind.
I know a good attorney.
A bench grinder is also a device we've thought about getting, because those make great testing for vibration sensors.
That sucks.
We want a bench grinder and a vacuum in here next time.
Here's my takeaway. My takeaway is I was the original kind of driving factor around Omni server being on Integrate Live. When I saw it and it clicked for me, I got it, and I could see the value of the missed opportunity looking back through my career, where this software could have made a huge impact on some of the things that we did. So I don't want to come across like I'm a fanboy or that I'm literally trying to, hey, just bump up our sponsor. That has nothing to do with this. I can see the value in Flow, in Omni server, and Data Hub. And man, I recognize the missed opportunities by not understanding it was available.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's wrap it up. My takeaways from the 2 weeks. I'm proud of each and every one of you, because we've said from the beginning with Integrate Live, we want to be real, we want to be authentic, we want to be transparent. You were. In moments where it was difficult, in moments where it was hard, you said, hey, learn from us. we're happy to go through this publicly and let you learn. Thank you for that. Final takeaway is that John's getting nothing done for the rest of the day because Flo predicted he's going to make 21 drinks. John, you better get busy, buddy. Hey, listen,
Well, hey, Kevin, don't you want one?
Yeah, we got to get started drinking those, all right?
John,
Kevin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
Well,
Okay, here
Come on,
comes your
give me
drink,
one.
Kevin. All right.
On behalf
There you go.
of the entire Integrate Live community, I thank you so much for
How's that pina colada, Kev?
Cheers.
This is a wrap. Take
When
care.
you come down here and get one,
In
next
just
time we see all y'all.
a couple of weeks. IntegrateLive.com. You can get the recording, and we hope that you'll join the community. If you do, we've got laptop stickers we're ready to start shipping your way. Ping us on
For my solo
IntegrateLive.com, and I'll get one for John's solo cup. Everybody, thank you. And that's a wrap.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks,
everyone.
Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.